Hey. Hey, there we go. There we go. Hey, you know what? You know what? I want to take a second here. I actually cut the end of this song off 2 minutes early because there was that nice long break there. So I said, oh, this thing's going to have a quiet outro. It's a 6.5 minute song. And then it started to cook when I was running the thing. And I want to know how it ends. Whoops. Ah, yeah, very satisfying. Very satisfying. Excellent. All right. So this is a new band for me. This is Incandescence. These guys are from Quebec. They are actually, they're obviously French Canadian. All these songs have French titles. That was Affranchisement. And then later on there will be L'Enfant Existe. So anyway, so they're kind of like, they're like the Canadian black metal mastodon. Not really, but that's the biggest French metal band I know is not Mastodon. Fuck's wrong with me? Gahira! Wrong mythical monster. Anyway, shall we continue on with the Muddy Towel, right? Let's get this thing. Let's get this thing going, right? Because the big problem you see with the character of the person of Jeffrey Epstein is that, unfortunately, there's a lot of these guys that are exactly like this. And they conditioned, especially the boomers, to fucking worship everything about them. And to pretend that you're just equal par buddies. But, amongst his own kind, he is citing books like this. He's not just saying that like a broski being racist because he's just kind of funny about it, right? And he maybe just has a certain sense of racial pride that comes with derogatory, degrading humor, right? All of which may be of poor character, but not a monstrous person, right? This is a person who wants to be the beneficiary of the the most liberal interpretation of this kind of shit that you could ask for. Or to at least glean out of it certain things. I'm very interested to see if there's any more Kabbalah that can or will be found in Epstein's further unredacted files, further released files. And mind you, the 2.5 or so million left, most of that bulk load is during the pre and post 9/11 years specifically. And you know, this is why, listen, I can't tell you the precise details of the truth. That I can't do. I got a handful of people that I think could possibly know better, right? Look, it's just what I am telling you the theater wants to present. And I'm trying to explain this to you in a manner so you can, to understand that you only see it this way when you can truly, finally transcend it and get off of the impulse control of the thing, right? And, you know, reading beyond it as you get more and more clarity as to what influences what. And based on what I think I have seen that hasn't been redacted yet, right? Because, you know, naturally, especially with, you know, like anyway, like, let me not get into the political. The point is that whether it turns out Trump is a bad guy that gets away with it, a bad guy who gets caught, or a good guy being pinned as a bad guy, or a good guy who had to play the bad guy, one way or the other, because the bad guy perception of him is so it just so is what it is. It plays on the psychology a certain way, and it is getting a result. It is getting this certain kind of result. And yeah, don't get fucking caught in the loop. But more fucking importantly, know how to separate the win from the misdirection, if you will. This is like, you know, the win, like, misdirection's probably not the best counterpart term, but it's still an appropriate, like, conveyance of what I'm trying to say, right? Is that here is a thing that's going to happen, regardless of what you think it means up there. I'm looking at the bottom of the pyramid and what the top of the pyramid is forced to do when the bottom of the pyramid shifts the way it wants to shift. And I am trying to show you guys all the different ways that they want to move the pyramid. And I'm showing you the way you can choose to move the pyramid, which would be more wise. Because none of you seem to be capable of taking the pyramid off your back. And unfortunately, the most interesting things that we have as people is all fucking caught up in this pyramid. And we're just begging for it to choose to validate our beliefs. And the Epstein files is one of those things that wants to do that. Now, I've been doing this for such a fucking long time that that people basically think what I am doing is wholly inappropriate to have this attitude about it, because I should be incredibly more like, I should be breaking down in a terrible hysterical fit about it. Or I should be the guy who's numb and says, well, I think the psychoanalysis of how people are reacting to the Epstein files is really the story here. And it's just like, I think every single one of us 7 years ago, if this kind of a drop happened then, we wouldn't be fucking saying that, because it would have happened on our timetable. Instead of being left to the 9 wins as a hopeless endeavor. But this is so extraordinary that one has to believe that, at least for an instance, the system had to do something. And do something to serve us in some fucking capacity, and it has. It's up to you how you want to handle this. This is certainly the best midterm present any informed person who would vote. I could vote, but I won't. Not a felon. I can vote. I will not. I choose not to. I refuse. No thank you. I'm not pretending anymore. You can pretend and go to the ballot box. The nation needs to figure out how it serves itself. And stop pretending that it is not itself. I mean, granted, it is not. I mean, the government is not the nation. It's practically there as a threat to the nation. Every government ends up being that. Because the leaders of that said system, they'll claim, oh, we've got the special blood that makes us, like, I'm not your daddy, but my whole bloodline is your daddy's fucking bloodline, and we really loved your dad, so we really love you, because you're his kids, and so I am the father of your nation. I am your king, so appointed by the on high. You know, none of it fucking matters. It doesn't matter what fucking structure of government you have. The centralized power is going to do what the centralized power is going to do. Whether, you know, and there's always going to be many centralized powers. So to try to have one be on top is impossible, right? Within, you know, what we all understand as the natural law, moral order of a thing, which has so much fucking freedom in it, it's ridiculous, but people just fucking hate it because it just feels like it's all a behavioral control mechanism that pretends to not be about Puritanism, and it's just, no, you're just imagining all the things that don't sit well in your nervous system and act like it's like, no, all it means is that literally you just don't need shit like government for your day to go the way it's going to go with your fucking schedule and your fucking life and whatnot. Right? And there's very minor changes that turns everything into a personal, localized non-legal experience with persons who fulfill the roles of their own accord of safety and have no special fucking privilege. There isn't some fucking ICE agent with a license to kill. You've got just another guy like me who has the courage to step up and act right in a position that I volunteered for and didn't ask anybody's permission to do, but doesn't give me the right, because no such position actually exists because there is no government, to act out of accord of the law myself, just because I am choosing to be a public defender for a voluntary period of time with my community and identify myself as such. But to know that that only means, oh, I'm playing, my role today, which doesn't give me any special privileges. It's just to know that I'm acting kind of like a cop, but I don't have any cop protections because I'm really just here making sure everybody's all right. That's it. I just care about your fucking interests and your safety or whatever. And I know what the fucking law is already, and I know that I am not the law, but we all bring it all together, right? Like, simple. You could do it that way, or you can allow people that read this book to base a government on something that will turn into this eventually. And that's why we're here. Because that's what COVID was beginning to deliver to us, was Talmudic madness. Chapter 15. Regulations concerning the tying and untying of knots on the Sabbath. Now, this is a good chapter to possibly learn a thing or two about Loki, because Loki is the knot. Mishnah. Following are the knots for the tying of which one becomes culpable. Hang on one second. I want to see if this message... If this guy isn't watching me live right now, I'm going to be disappointed. He's not. Hey, tune into my YouTube. I'm live right now, knucklehead. Alright, there we go. It's a good old friend of mine. He's a new student to the horror show. He's, even though he's a metal musician, you would have thought he would be keeping an eye on these things because half the bands he listens to talks about it. But anyway, Mishnah, following are the knots for the tying of which one becomes culpable. The knots of the camel drivers. Hey, what's up, Howard? Of the camel drivers made on the guiding ring, and the knot of the seaman made on the bow of a ship. Just as one becomes culpable for tying them, so also one becomes culpable for untying them. Armeyer said, one does not become culpable for any knots that can be untied with one hand. Which I guess would just mean anything that's kind of like a simple knot, right? Which I think there's plenty of knots that you can do with one hand in special ways, right? You wouldn't be able to make it very tight. You're talking about like they probably practice when they're young on like tying shoes with like one hand. I bet they fucking do that. Gemara. What is the meaning of a knot of the camel drivers and a knot of seamen? Shall we assume that by such a knot is meant the one that is tied in attaching the guiding line suspended from the nose ring of a camel to something else, and also the knot made in attaching the hawser of a ship to a capstan on the deck? Such knots are not permanent. Why should the tying of them be prohibited? Nay, by the knot is meant the one made in attaching the guiding line to the nose ring and the hawser to the ship itself, both of which are permanent knots. Yeah, I guess. I mean, what makes that more permanent than any other? I mean, you tie a knot and you leave the knot there, and it's permanent until you untie it at your choosing, right? those would have to be untied. You want the ship to... You want to change a thing with the ship? Like, I'm not sure exactly... the capstan on the dock. Okay, yeah. The ship to the dock. Okay, so the ship is docked, right? So using this thing, it's kind of making a regulatory point for like like if you're with the cop, you're driving, the cops throw on their lights, and then there's fucking arbitrary like whatevers, and you're culpable, right? You're like, that's what this is. It's just like your tail light was out. We're gonna fine you. Bring a sin offering. Mishnah, there are knots on account of which one does not become culpable, as in the case of a camel driver's of seamen's knots. A woman may tie the slit of her chemise, the bands of her hood, the bands of her girdle, the straps of her shoes and sandals, also the bands of leather flasks filled with wine or oil, and of a pot of meat. Our Elizar, the son of Jacob, says, one may tie a rope in front of cattle in order that they may not escape. One may tie a bucket over the well with his girdle, but not with a rope. Ad Yehuda permits this to be done with a rope also, for a rule was laid down by Ad Yehuda, one is not culpable for any knot which is not permanently fastened. Gemara, is there not a difficulty in understanding the Mishnah itself? The first part states that there are knots on account of which one does not become culpable, etc., implying, therefore, that while one who ties them does not become liable for a sin offering, at the same time, he must not do it to commence with. The latter part, however, says that a woman may tie the slit of her chemise, etc., implying then that she may do it in the first place. The Mishnah says there are some knots for the tying of which one does not become culpable, as in the case of the knots of the camel drivers, etc. Is it just because all those knots can be done with one hand, and thus that's that's like the standard? It's like the exception to the rule for various sorts. But anyway, and they are the knots by means of which the guiding line is attached to the nose ring, and the knots by means of which the hawsers are attached to the ship itself. For tying such knots, one does not become liable for a sin offering, but he must not make them to commence with, because at times the knot is left on the nose ring or on the ship for some time. And there are other knots which may be tied in the first place, such as the slit of a woman's chemise, etc. What would he inform us? Is it not self-evident that a woman must tie the slit in her chemise? The case treated of is where a chemise has two slits, an upper and a lower, and it can be put on over the head, even if the lower one is tied. We might assume, then, that only the upper one of the slits would be permitted to be tied. He therefore informs us that both the upper and the lower may be tied and untied. The bonds of her hood, is this not self-evident? The case is that the bonds of the hood are always tied, and the woman slips on the hood without untying or tying the bands, and we might assume that for this reason the knot is considered permanent. He therefore informs us that if a hair become unentangled in the hood, the woman may tie and untie the bands, the straps of her shoes and sandals, etc. Ad Yehuda, the brother of Arsala, the pious. Oh, this pious. Oh, he's... What does that even mean, to be pious at this? Aren't these guys all pious once they do their sin offerings? Had a pair of sandals, which were sometimes worn by him and sometimes by his child. He came to Abiyah, or Abiyah. I wish I could just get a straight... I hate the way it's spelled. It's so fucking annoying to say that. Abiyah. Abiyah? Because I don't know if Abiyah sounds Jewish, but then again, what the fuck sounds Jewish anyway? Really? And asked him whether he might tie and untie them on Sabbath. Said Abai, he who does this unintentionally becomes liable for a sin offering. Said Ar Yehuda to him, if thou hadst said that one is not culpable for doing this, but that it must not be done to commence with, it would seem strange to me thou sayest now that one is liable for a sin offering. Asked Abai, why so? Answered Ar Yehuda, because on weekdays I sometimes also wear the sandals, and if my child wishes to use them, I untie them and adjust them to the child's foot. Answered Abai, if such be the case, they may be tied or untied on the Sabbath to commence with. Ar Jeremiah was walking behind Ar Abuha, and on unclaimed ground, and the band of his sandal having seen torn off, he asked Ar-Abua what to do. Ar-Abua told him to take damp seaweeds which an animal can eat, and which may therefore be handled on Sabbath, and tie his sandals. Okay. So he can tie if it's being tied out of something the animal can eat. You know, you could have avoided all of that if that's just in the original letter of the fucking law in the first Mishnah. If the first Mishnah had said that this applies to anything that is not an edible, like, so that probably means, like, if you needed to tie something out of wheat, like straw, you know, because, like, you know, there's animals that eat straw and shit. Do they eat straw? They eat the wheat. Well, you know, like grass. You can tie something with grass. Right? I mean, like, if I was some of these rabbis, that's how I would have said. I said, like, have some straw or some grass or something that, you know, something that is fresh with integrity to use as a string, because those are things that the cows eat, and you may tie with those. If you don't have those, you have to only do something you can tie with one hand. Just right? All these ridiculous, retarded things you have to do and say, and like, these people are psycho. Abai stood before Ar Yosef in private ground, and what's up, Ed, my man? That is my buddy Ed Corpse from my old band Brain Dead. Fucking good dude. Stood before Ar Yosef in private ground, and the band of one of his... Okay, sorry. Sandals... Okay, band of one of his sandals becoming torn off. He asked Ar Yosef what to do. Said Ar Yosef, leave thy sandal here and walk without it. Asked the Abai, wherein does my case differ from that of Ar Jeremiah? Answered Ar Yosef, Ar Jeremiah sandal was torn off in unclaimed ground, where had he left it, it would have been lost. But thine is in my yard and will be safe. Okay, sure. So that stipulation allows you then to tie under the regulatory that it's something that an animal could eat. God's going to be very upset if you break any of these laws. You better fucking slice a goat's neck. You got to be kidding me, right? You got to be kidding me. All these people, right? Like this is all based on, I don't want to lose another fucking goat. I better not tie my shoes. Right? Like, do Christians ever fucking read this shit? Do they ever fucking care? And then they fucking, like, they'll either dismiss it, or they'll be like, oh, it's the synagogue of Satan. And it's just like, no, this is just the synagogues. Anyway, wherein does my case around Jeremiah? Okay, so unclaimed ground, left it had been lost, thine will be safe. Said Abai, but the sandal is a perfect vessel, but I can put it on my other foot and then it will not fall off. Why should I not be permitted to handle it? Ar Yosef answered, because we learned elsewhere in regard to Shalitza that Ar Yohanan interpreted a Boretha in accordance with Ar Yehuda, who says that if the band of a sandal was torn off, the sandal cannot be regarded as a vessel. We must assume, therefore, that the ordinance according to Ar Yehuda prevails. So, if you have something that's a vessel, but it's not able, but it doesn't work as a vessel anymore, it ceases to be considered a vessel. Which theoretically would mean that it's either just damaged goods or trash. Regards to chalitza. I need to know what chalitza is. Let's take a copy paste on this. Where's copy? Thank you. Oh, and Ed, I'm going to be hitting the break real soon. We're listening to a band called Incandescence. They're French-Canadian. Okay, the halitza or the chalitza in rabbinical Judaism is the process by which a childless widow and a brother of her deceased husband may avoid the duty of marry under biblical system of yibum. Okay, all right. The process involves the widow making a declaration, taking off a shoe of the brother and slipping on the floor. Okay, so there's the shoe situation in the ritual, right? All right. So then we must assume, therefore, the Aruh prevails. Okay. All right, before I go to break, let me just take a look and scroll down here, see what all this... All right. One sec. Because I have no idea how long the chapter is. I didn't read it. It's a pretty short chapter. I can see the bottom of it right there. All right, cool. Excellent. Nice. All right, so this here is Incandescence from Horst Temps. L'enfer existe. Just an ambient ending. Excellent. I did not pre-screen anything. I almost never do. I mean, I give it I give it a couple. I poked around the songs, right, being like, okay, all right, this won't be some accidental disaster I will regret midstream. I always take a tiny bit, like, you can get a really good idea, with like art and things, and yeah. Oh right, yeah, that whole thing. Well, yeah, I need to set up. I really need to figure out how I set up a proper, like. I gotta have like a proper, like. I gotta do like a production example that I would have to edit myself. I suppose I could do that once to be like, here, I don't want to do editing myself, but I did this to give you an idea of how good I can be with editing. Would you like to hear my voice for hours and hours on end? Here's some of the characters I can do. They're all really pathetic, but they're funny. Anyway. Excuse me. Also, the bands of leather, flasks, filled with oil or wine, etc. Is this not self-evident? The case treated of is where the flasks had two mouths, and lest we assume that only one of them may be tied and untied, he informs us that both may be tied. And of a pot of meat, is this not self-evident? The Mishnah means to state that even if the pot have an opening at the bottom, it might be assumed that the knot tied around the mouth of the pot is permanent and should not be untied. We are informed that it may be untied nevertheless. I mean, like, how often do the Jews, like, sit back, look at the whole fucking, like, statements that they're looking at here, and sit there and say, why are we doing this to ourselves? With the tying and the untying and the, like seriously, these laws are what's holding up their entire fucking culture, right? Which is why, like, an Old Testament-y Christian is like nothing like these guys. Why, like, a fucking Mason is nothing like these guys. At the very least, right? But the diversity of Jews amongst Jews that have an agenda and the wealth, status, influence, etc., to do the agenda, which is the people above Epstein, then give that to him. But he's among the ones that can be taken away because they play in the outer court where they are still that close to the public eye. The people above them, they're not fucking around. Prince Andrew was fucking around. He was taking his Illuminati privilege card way too far. And so the axe came down. But that doesn't mean that the only thing you're seeing is them punishing their own. Or whatever the hell is happening with what is, I think, listen, I don't know, man. The arrests are coming. But what's more important is that you focus on you. And you focus on your world. Now more than ever. As all the authorities of the top are breaking down. There will be the communist that wants to exploit it. You must not let that happen. There will be the capitalist who wants to exploit it. Do not let that happen. Nobody gets exploited anymore. Protect ourselves from exploitation. Half the reason they're collapsing is people decided to protect themselves from exploitation. The trust in the institution of Disney has been shattered. It was shattered before Jeffrey Epstein, which is kind of the miraculous thing. Right? You didn't need to release the Epstein files to see Disney in fucking ruin as it is. And, you know, much of Gen Z is the product. Like, you want to understand dark epigenetics? Like, I didn't need Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein files to talk to you about the whole plan. Then here's Jeffrey Epstein just fucking giving you the plan that I noticed and laid out years and years and years ago, especially because I could make the correlations to the movies. Oh, and then the Epstein files come out and I find out Jeffrey Epstein was leaning on the movies. It's like, oh, well, look at that. Jeffrey Epstein was telling us all about himself. His relationship with Harvey Weinstein, like, you know, you watch all the Weinstein movies, like, a lot of the worst shit that is in the files so far has been done in different fucking movies in the Weinstein universe. But in very different ways. All right. Maybe tied, nevertheless. Okay. Adonijah, the son of Jacob, said, etc. Is this not self-evident? The case treated of is where there were two ropes, and one tied higher up, the other lower. We might assume that because the lower one is tied permanently, one may not untie it. Therefore, he informs us both that may be tied and untied, said Ad Yehuda in the name of Samuel. The halakha prevails according to our Eliezer ben Jacob. One may tie a bucket with his girdle, but not with a rope, etc. What kind of a rope is not permitted? Is it an ordinary rope? Why does Ad Yehuda permit it? It remains permanently tied. Hold on a second. One may tie a bucket with his girdle, but not with a rope. Okay, what kind of a rope is not permitted? Hold on, I gotta see where this goes. Why does Ad Yehuda permit it? It remains permanently tied. Shall we assume that it refers to the rope or a weaver? Why is it not permitted? It will surely be removed because the weaver will need it, or is it prohibited simply as a precautionary measure, lest someone tie the bucket with an ordinary rope, and Ad Yehuda does not entertain this apprehension? Then it is a contradictory to the following Baretha. A rope fastened to a bucket which became torn should not be tied into a firm knot, but simply tied into a loop. And Ad Yehuda said it should be joined together with the owner's girdle, but it must not be tied into a loop. This would be a case for where both the rabbis and Ad Yehuda contradict themselves. There is no contradiction at all. As for the rabbis, they hold that an ordinary rope may be mistaken for the rope of a weaver, because both are ropes, but a loop cannot be mistaken for a knot because they have different names. Right. Yes. Yes. It doesn't... There's something wrong with baseline intelligence here, that statement has to be said like that. Right? What is the intelligent quotient of the people that are fucking answering the questions for the Talmud here? As for Ad Yehuda, or the audience that this is for, you know what I mean? I mean, granted, I suppose this starts early. Like, all right, I'm going to ask a question. All right. When is the youngest men allowed to read the Talmud? Let's see. The Jewish age of majority and its obligations. This sounds like it. All right. Okay, so it's talking about, yeah, so the bar mitzvah. Let me find the word Talmud because I don't want to fucking read this. Just want to read anything relevant to the Talmud. There we go. Okay, 5 men. Wait a minute. Talmud. Okay. Talmudic sources make it quite clear that this was once not the... Okay, hold on. The Torah cannot serve as one of them. Hold on a minute. Prior to this time, the child dons no tefillin, phylacteries, is not accorded with the privilege and honor of being called up at service to make a blessing over the Torah, cannot serve as one of the 10 adults needed to compromise minyan, the quorum necessary for community prayer, cannot act as the Baal Tefillah or Baal Korah, the individual who leads the congregation in prayer. They have titles! They have titles, Baal? This is, oh my God! When did the conspiracy theorists miss this? This is in my Jewish learning doc. It's a public website. Hang on, guys. Hang on. You're going to want a sheetish. You're going to want a sheet. Fucking Baal. Oh my God. Oh my God. There we go. There it is. Right there. Right there, Baal. The Baal Talifa, the Baal Koreh. Ha! Wow. So they're the Lord of the ceremony. That's basically what that means. The Lord of, not like those words don't mean ceremony, but the Tefillah would be a ceremony. The Koreh would be a ceremony because, like, what's it say here? The individual leads the congregation in prayer and in certain congregations does not wear a prayer shawl. The traditions associated with the latter custom vary widely. Perhaps rope occults pope and loop not different positions in leadership. Thus, nautical references not tying. Yes, because these people have the Babylonian Talmud came along with the Sea People's Federation in this respect, or the Sea People's Federation would eventually bring the Talmud about, if you will. I believe the Talmud was kind of officially real in like 500 AD. I have a feeling a lot of this is older than that, but not as old as when the Bible events happened. So Talmudic sources make it quite clear that this was once not the case. While a child was obligated to perform these rituals by 13, 12 for girls, if he understood their significances prior to that time and was considered capable of performing them, he could do so even though he had not yet reached the age of majority. The Talmud, Sukkah 42a, explicitly states if a minor knows how to wrap himself in the talit, he is subject to the obligation. If he knows how to look after tefillin, his father must acquire them for him. This is not the sole Talmudic source indicating that the rituals we associate with the bar mitzvah were observed prior to 13. All are qualified to be among the 7 who read from the Torah, even a minor Megillah 23a. Okay, so about the time you hit your bar mitzvah is about the time you have to start like really reading the Talmud. So that makes sense. That lines up with what I think I know. All right. Ar Eba, in the name of Arhaya Biashi, quoting Rab, said, one may bring a rope from his house and can tie it to the cow, then fasten it to the crib. Now, by the way, why I perked up about the soap rope was not because of prison, although kind of is because of prison, because it's about Epstein files. I was reading through some of the shit, and I was looking at all sorts of random stuff, and one of the things that that seemed ordinary, other than the fact that it was soap on the rope, and I said, but this was at his fucking, this was like somewhere on the island or somewhere on Zorro Ranch. It was like a Zorro Ranch or a Little St. James item, right? You know, Zorro Ranch is a different animal where horrible things also happened. They didn't just have to happen on an island. And I think that Zorro Ranch may have been a little bit more involved on the science end of his victims. Okay? All right. Every fucking episode now is gonna be fucking be making Epstein references from now on during this Talmudic stuff because, well, it's half the reason why I was doing this. I just knew the future needed me to fucking belt this fucking out and disperse it. What's up, Tim Timony? All right. Yohanan asked the Varihuda ba levei. Huh? Oh, look at that. A levei. A levei, but it's a levei nonetheless. May weaving utensils, either upper or lower, be handled on the Sabbath? Answered Yehuda, nay, they may not. Why so? Because on weekdays they are also never used for any other purpose, being too heavy. Hence they are always used for weaving alone, and therefore must not be handled on Sabbath. One may fold his clothes, just removed, even 4 or 5 times on the Sabbath. On the eve of Sabbath, one may prepare his beds for use on the Sabbath, but not at the close of Sabbath, for use after the Sabbath is gone. Ar-Ishmael says, one may arrange his clothes and prepare his beds on the Day of Atonement for the Sabbath. Further, the sacrificial tallow left over from the Sabbath may be offered up on the Day of Atonement. If the two succeed one another before the Jewish calendar was arranged, but not such as is left over from the Day of Atonement on the Sabbath, Ar-Akiba said, neither that tallow left over from the Sabbath may be offered up on the Day of Atonement, nor that of the Day of Atonement on the Sabbath. The school of Aryanai said, the Mishnah only permits the folding of clothes by one man, but not by two, and also only in case the clothes are new, but not if they are old, because the old clothes are better preserved by folding. New clothes must only be folded if they are white clothes, but not if they are colored. White clothes may be folded only if they constitute all the garments possessed by the man, but if he had others, he must not fold even those. As we have learned in a Tosefta, the family of Ar-Gebaliel did not even fold white clothes because they had others for a change. Arhuna said, if one have a change of clothes for the Sabbath, he should change them. If not, he should at least let them down. Ar-Safra opposed this. If one let down his garments, he will be considered as a vain man. If he does this only on the Sabbath and not on weekdays, he will not be considered vain, but simply as one desirous of keeping the Sabbath with due respect, as it is written in Isaiah, I think that's 108:13. And honor it by not doing thy usual pursuits. Honor it. is meant to imply that by wearing different clothes on the Sabbath should be honored. For Yohanan calls clothes signs of honor, and through clothes a man is honored. Yeah, I think I kind of understand the point right there, right? Now, you can get really fucking fascist with those ideas, those values in that way, right? But there ought to be different clothing under different circumstances, right? It's just a question of, do you want to be under circumstances? Like, I usually like to dress the way I want to dress when I go into my wonderful world of heavy metal. Get away from all these fucking people that know Jeffrey Epstein in my town. My fucking God, this guy. And so, I typically don't like to be in business suit situations. And if I'm going to be in a suit, I am not going to wear a tie. Because I do not want to tell you that I'm willing to choke myself for you. I'm not going to be a stiff for you. So, by not doing thy usual pursuits means that the walk on the Sabbath should not be as on weekdays. By not following thy own business means to say that only thy own business is not allowed, but heavenly business is. And speaking vain words, the mode of speaking on Sabbath should not be like that on weekdays. Speaking is not allowed, but thinking is. All this is perfectly proper, not to dress as on weekdays, nor to speak as on weekdays. But what does a different walk on the Sabbath signify? It signifies that one should not make long strides on the Sabbath. As Rabbi asked of Ishmael to Arhios, may one make long strides on the Sabbath? Answered he, may one do so even on weekdays, for I say that a long stride deprives a man of a 500th part of the light of his eyes. A remedy for this is, however, the drinking of the wine over which the benediction is made on the eve before the Sabbath. It is written in Ruth 3:3, therefore bathe and anoint thyself, and put thy garments upon thee, by which, said Eleazar, is meant the Sabbath garments. All right, it's 9:35. This is a good time to pause. Oh, I've had this screen on the whole time. Oh, now somebody says something. You guys got to talk. You guys got to talk to me. I am embarrassed. Oh, that was such a snappy transition. I thought there was like a one more fucking like downbeat kind of thing hitting. Anyway, we're back. Woo! I found another banger of a fucking album. How do I do it? All right. So here we are. I wanted to actually go back a hair. Bioniry's not doing the usual pursuits. Honor it. I actually am kind of interested in this one. I just need to make sure I get this Roman numeral correct. Bear with me. Excuse me. You're welcome. Let's see. Yeah, that is... What's the answer? Ah. Oh, no, that's only 58. Okay, that's 58. 5813. Excellent. All right. Yeah, Timony. And, you know I've said that before. Right. And wasn't that like some sort of pseudo mushroom head reference or something? Like, or am I thinking of Mudvayne with the LD50 thing? I don't know. Anyway. Old Testament. Where's Isaiah? There it is. 58. All right, it was 58:13. Okay, let me. Excuse me. No, not projector. Properties. Where'd it go? Oh, you're not on the screen. Shoot, I gotta make another one. Hold on. I have to play with my system here. Because I didn't want to set up. There it is. Hey, much better. Bang. Okay. One sec. Sizing. Great. All right, that's good enough. Okay, so call out with full throat. Do not keep back. I'm starting from verse 1 to get a sense of the beginning of it. Like, I'm not going to read all 13. Like a trumpet, raise your voice and tell to my people their transgression and to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet, day by day they are inquiring for me and are delighting in the knowledge of my ways, like a nation that does righteousness and forsakes not the judgment of its Elohim. They are asking me for righteous judgments. They are delighting in the nearness of their Elohim. You see, this makes more sense as a sentence if you take away the personalness of Elohim, right? You can, like, think about, like, when Donald Trump is talking about the government, right? It's just like, he's the president, he's the government, but we have the tripartite government, and there's all sorts of people. And at the very least, he's speaking for 3 entities when he says the government, right? Why do we fast, yet you do not see? Why do we humble our souls, yet you are not knowing? Behold, in the day of your fast you are finding delight. All your grievous labors you are exacting on others. Behold, for contentions and strife are you fasting, and to smite with the fists of wickedness you shall not fast as today, to make your voice heard in the height. So like he's talking about how, like, basically they're trying, but they're really missing the mark. Let's see. So let's go to 13, the verse in question. It might be off by a verse. We'll see. If you turn back your foot from travel on the Sabbath, from doing your own desires on my holy day, and you call the Sabbath a rich delight, the holy day of Yahweh, glorious, and you glorify it rather than doing your own ways, rather than finding your own desire or speaking your own word. So I'd say that is not something that needs to be such a hardcore law. That is more of something that you need as training wheels in your development, right? To where you are capable of remembering to have a selfless day, right? Not because you're necessarily consciously selfish, but when you're if you do not appreciate there might be something wrong with being a part of the thralls of the crowd, and the drug of the approval of the of the herd is so irresistible, because you just want to be around these people that you admire their thing, and you think you belong there or can get yourself to fit there. Right? And so you heard the very beginning of that chapter. There's a framework of, you guys are kind of living in your monkey minds. Right? Like, I can believe that with the good stuff that does exist in this paltered reference material of the Bible, that probably, like, bits and pieces of just this passage in a mythological context has a great deal to teach us, but I wouldn't use this story. I would try to go back and figure out where that difference comes between we're going to say BA and AA. Before Anunnaki, after Anunnaki. We'll keep it short and simple like that. I'll say BA and AA, because right now I think I'm going to have to, utilize some upgraded vernacular to continue forward in parsing this level of the occult game, especially with the revelations and consciousness shift of the Epstein files. You have a permission slip with the Epstein files to be better people and make a better world by choosing to take it seriously, head on, find the fucking stomach, because you're the kind of person. Nobody should have to have this stomach, but the men need to rise the fuck up and have the goddamn fucking stomach, so they can fucking understand how poor your judgment of who are model human beings in the world we just grew up through. I had been so done with fucking modern culture forever. Ever. I don't know if I ever really liked it. Of course, in the 90s, I had a liking for the edge that I saw on MTV, and was a fairly cringy metalhead kid. And took me forever to realize how much damage I was allowing to happen to myself. Fast forward 25 fucking years. Anyway. Let's see. And we're back. All right. Arhuna said, if one have a change of clothes for the Sabbath, he should change them. If not, he should at least... Okay, I'm sorry. I went up here so I could get that Isaiah quote. Let's go back down to where I am. There was Ruth. I read that. Okay. It is written, Proverbs 9:9, give to the wise instruction, and he will become yet wiser, said Eleazar. But that is meant, Ruth, the Moabite, and the prophet Samuel of Ramah. Naomi said to Ruth, therefore bathe, and anoint thyself, and put thy garments upon thee, and go down to the threshing floor. But Ruth did as it is written, further in Ibid 6. And she went down into the threshing floor, and did in accordance with all that her mother-in-law had commanded her. Which means that she first went down to the threshing floor and then dressed herself in order not to soil her clothes. As for Samuel, when Eli said unto him, 1 Samuel 3:9, go lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. And he did at the time, as it is written in Ibid 10, and the Lord came and placed himself and called, as at previous times, Samuel. And Samuel said, speak, for thy servant heareth, but did not say, speak, Jehovah, as he was told to do by Eli, because not knowing who was speaking, he did not want to speak the Lord's name in vain. Okay, so that's an interesting way to say, but that's not really the Lord's name in vain. You're not sure who the God is. I mean, I guess mistakenly naming something else your Lord's name. But why is it Jehovah? Like, I think this entire Talmud, is this the first time Jehovah, which is the Latin version of Yahweh, because Yahweh associated with El is Saturnian. Jehovah, although it's taking El and incorporating it into itself, is a derivative of Jove, which is the Latinization of Deus Peter Jupiter in Rome. It was a later name for Jupiter was Jove, and then Jove became Jehovah, turning God into turning Yahweh into both a Saturnian and Jupiterian god. But the problem is that it's Atonism, and it's trying to make a unigod, and so they're doing their best to use comparative mythology as a way to profane our ancestral traditions by merging them together, annihilating the past of it, and demonizing that past, just because you wanted to force a cohesion which was an affront to the soul and had nothing to do with all sorts of things. That's right, a jovial fellow. I have strong Jupiter placements in my chart, strong Sagittarius placements in my chart. Joviality is my middle name. Just look at what the fuck I do, and just look at how I do it. Not even what I'm fucking doing. Just look at how I do it. It's just like, I'm a physically fit Santa Claus. So anyway, so 1 Samuel 3:9. I'm a little interested because I feel like there's something they're trying to say is happening with his relationship with God, which is there's usually some, so that means there's metaphysics involved, and I want to get to the metaphysics. Wait, which one is it? Samuel. 1 Samuel. Can I please remember 3:9? 9. So Eli told Samuel, go and lie down. when it occurs that he should call out to you, then you must say, "Speak, Yahweh, for your servant is hearing." So Samuel went back and lay down in his place. All right. I want to take a look at the read of this. And he is saying, Eli to Samuel, "Go you, lie down in you," and he becomes, if he is calling to you, and you say, "Speak you, Yahweh, that hearing servant of you," and he is going, Samuel, and he is lying down in place of him. Occurs that he should call out to you then. Okay, so I mean, like, that does sound like you're basically going to meditate and listen to God, right? You know, or as most of us practitioners do in our meditation, we are listening to our higher selves. We're listening to the higher force. I like to call the higher force the Jinn region, which is from the Norse Eddas, which is the place of power by which the gods sit upon the doom chair, and in which also was where the runes emerged in Odin's scream. So it's the power and principality of the yawning chasm of Ginnungagap. Okay. So let me go up to the top here and get a sense of what was going on. So the lad Samuel was in ministry before Yahweh under Eli the priest. In those days, the word of Yahweh had become rare. There was no vision being unfolded. Then it occurred on that day, Eli was lying down in his own place. His eyes had started to grow dim, and he was not able to see. The lamp of Elohim was not yet quenched while Samuel was lying down in the temple of Yahweh, where the coffer of Elohim was. See, it says his eyes started to grow dim, not the light in the room. So Yahweh called out to Samuel, and he answered, "Here I am." He ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called out to me." Yet he replied, "I did not call. Turn back and lie down." So he went back and laid down. Yahweh proceeded to call yet again Samuel. So Samuel rose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called out to me." Yet I replied, "I did not call, my son. Turn back and lie down." Right? Okay, so like God's trying to get his attention, and he hasn't gotten the point yet, right? You know, it's just like, oh, this kid's slow, right? God's just like, oh my God, I'm not your teacher, you dunce. Oh, why are my people so, As for Samuel, he had not yet come to know Yahweh, the word of Yahweh, and not yet been revealed to him. So that would mean that Samuel would be a boy then. This would be pre-bar mitzvah, if you will, or the equivalent of the bar mitzvah that these ancient practices, like the ancient practices by which bar mitzvah would eventually come about, where, you know, the age of 13 may not be so necessary or particular in any of these earliest cases, right? So then there's the third time Eli understood that Yahweh's calling out to the lad. So, right, and you can tell that this is a mythological story. It's got the trope of three, right? I can pick a Grimm's fairy tale out of a hat with a trope of three. Every Grimm fucking fairy tale. Every Hans Christian Andersen, or like whatever these guys that wrote down the oral traditions that then got butchered by Disney, that we allowed them to do because we've been ignorant for far too long. And that's a long, complicated history, and it's hard to say who's to blame. It's only frustrating, right? But anyway, the trope of three is always very important. There's a lot of things happening in trifectas in rituals, right? See, Eli told Samuel, go and lie down. Right. So went and lay down in his place. Yahweh came and stood and called out, is it done? The time Samuel answered, speak, for your servant is hearing. Then Yahweh said to Samuel, so now he can hear, now he hears God. Soon I shall do something in Israel about which both ears of anyone hearing it shall tingle. Oh, it happens to be he happens to be giving him like the heads up on a thing. He gets the special privilege. Hey buddy, you get to be a prophet. Congratulations, your life sucks. I told him that I shall judge his house for the eon for the depravity. Yep, your life sucks, buddy. You're going to have to go tell people about this. Because he knew that his sons were dishonoring Elohim, and he did not remonstrate with them. Don't you think it's a real bitch that God picks like one guy in your fucking bloodline to go bear the bad news? He can't just fucking transubstantiationally show up and fucking do it, you know? But no. They don't explain why this is a rare time. They just know that it is, and they don't question it. Right? So, when would one guess this age would be in which there was, like, I can understand this ebb and flow, right? Like, we don't get fucking, UFOs like we used to anymore, right? Like, in the 90s, UFO reports were all over the motherfucking place. It was on a steady incline through the late 70s, pushing forward. And I could talk all about the fucking, the deals made with Eisenhower and the off-worlders for the same genetic kind of harvesting situation that was given to Jeffrey Epstein to run the logistics and the numbers. So anyway, okay, I think we get it with that. And let's see. It is 10:06. Let's play some more of this shredding shit. This is Levide or Levide. It's probably Levide. I really should have paid more attention to my grandmother's native tongue. One of my many regrets. Hey, alright, we're back. Alright, so we hit the first Samuel 3:9 situation. Then what? Then we were down here, though, right? No. Because I went... No, because then... No, because I don't remember reading... No, we were just right here, I think. And I think I just went back up to the Samuel up there. Yeah, that's where we are, I think. Let's put that back on. You'd probably appreciate seeing what we're doing. It is written in Ruth 2:3, and she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, said Eleazar. She went and came to and fro until she found such men as were fit company for her. Then said Boaz unto his young man that was appointed over the reapers, whose maiden is this, Ibid 5. Was it proper for Boaz to inquire whose maiden she was? We have learned in Aboretha, Boaz, noticed that she was very modest, for when gleaning from the sheaves, she did so standing, if the sheaves were also standing, and if the sheaves were on the ground, she did not stoop, lest she reveal some of her form, but sat down and gleaned in that position. But keep close company with my own maidens, Ibid 8. Was it proper for Boaz to say my own maidens? Was it his custom to mingle with the women? Said Eleazar. Because Boaz saw that Orpah, not Oprah, but it looks like it, Orpah, kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth cleaved unto her. Ibid 1:14. He thought that if she were such a woman, it would be proper for him to associate with her. Excuse me. And Boaz said unto her, at mealtime come near hither, halom. Ibid 2:14. Said Eleazar, by the word halom, near hither, Boaz hinted to her that from her would spring the kingdom of David, who used the expression halom, as it is written in 2 Samuel 7:18. Then went King David in and sat down before the Lord, and he said, who am I, O Lord eternal? And what is my house that thou hast brought me as far as hitherward, halom? And eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. Ruth 2:14. From this it can be inferred that vinegar is good for relieving excessive heat, said Eleazar, but Samuel ben Nahmeni said, this was also a hint to Ruth that from her would spring forth a son whose deeds would be sour as vinegar, and that was King Manasseh. And she seated herself beside the reapers, and said, Eleazar, beside the reapers and not between them, was also a hint that the kingdom of David would eventually be divided. And he reached her part, but by the way, that's all witchcraft. That's all like Bene Gesserit like shit, right? That's like she's doing stuff with like the kids, the items or whatever, and it's kind of a divination. It's a kind of a sympathetic resonant stand-in for a thing, representative, symbolically representative. It's like that's what witches do, right? So plenty of witchcraft. You just have been denied it because well, you've been denied a whole lot of things, which is why you need to get back to your pagan roots, and you need to go pre-Anunnaki. For any and all insulted fucking persons of the Abrahamic faith out there, go get pre-Anunnaki and then come back to me. Go pre-Anunnaki. That's all I ask, is go pre-Anunnaki. Try it. Try it. And he reached her parched corn, and she ate, and was satisfied, and had some left, said Elazar. This is a reference to the kingdom of David. Ate at the time of David, was satisfied in the time of Solomon, and had some left in the time of King Shizkiah. Others say ate during the days of David, and Solomon was satisfied during the days of Shizkiah, and had some left in the time of Yehuda Hanasi, a descendant of David, whose coachman even, according to the teaching of the master, was said to be richer than Shahur, King Shah of Persia. Oh. In a Beretha, however, we have learned this passage does not refer to the kingdom of David, but to Israel in general. It means Israel ate in this life, will be satisfied in the times of the Messiah, and shall have some left in the world to come. Israel ate in this life, will be satisfied in the times of the Messiah, and shall have some left in the world to come. You see, I find that is, what is that trying to say? Because you want to juxtapose that statement to Israel's history. And this, like I said, it was put together at like 500 AD. But it's about much older things anyway. And I'm just wondering if, see, because, and will be satisfied in the times, and will be satisfied in the, well, what, maybe, so like, we all complain about the dump loads of money that we give Israel, and the weapons, and the strategic support, like the everything. They are this golden child that can do no wrong in our empire's eyes. And, does it deserve special attention? Is it any more genocidal than other countries? But also, like, is the world just less brutal? Because sure, I can scan history. I can scan history in my 45 years of life and think about plenty of horrendous shit that I've heard about happening in my lifetime outside of the Middle East. But some may perhaps be hearsay. You know, others were part of the horrors of the Cold War and the not so cold parts of the Cold War. But, you know, for things to get that bad, so we satiate. We make sure Israel is 100% satisfied. So somebody is satiating Israel. Somebody is messiahing the shit out of that country. And it is implying by saying that it shall have some left in the world to come, means it will not be so satiated. It won't be as tops. But it's not saying it won't exist. It's not saying it'll be less important. I don't know. What does that mean? Because that's going to fuel a lot of Zionist thought. Arhaya bar Abba said in the name of Aryohanan, whence do we know that a change of clothes is a biblical prescription? Because it is written in Leviticus 6:4, and he shall take off his garments and put on other garments, and carry forth the ashes to without the camp unto a clean place. This was commented upon by the school of Arishmael to mean that the clothes worn while cooking for one's master should not be worn when serving the master at table. The same teacher said again, a scholar, Talmud Shasham, or Shakam, upon whose clothes a stain can be found, deserves to be put to death, for it is written in Proverbs 8:36, all those that hate me love death. Do not read those that hate me, masanai, but those that cause others to hate me, masnai, implying that if a stain is noticed on a scholar's clothes, the whole law is held lightly. Rab Haina said, in the Boretha, was taught not upon whose clothes a stain can be found, but upon whose clothes grease, rabhad, is found. They do not differ. However, the former refers to an overgarment, while the latter to an undergarment. Okay. So this is so Leviticus, I want to get, Proverbs. Proverbs 8:36. What the hell is this rationalization? Oh, and it's like the last verse in chapter 8 too. Yeah, whoever misses me wrongs his soul. All who hate me love death. Okay, that's it. That's it. It's so, I mean, that's it. Somehow, everything implied by this line is implicit in that scenario that we just read in the Talmud. Okay, so let's get some fucking context here, because they are implying a lot preceding it. There's 36 verses. I'm not going to go to the beginning. Let's start at 30. Then I was beside him as his foster child, and I was filled with bliss day by day, gamboling before him in every season. Gamboling? Hold on. What is gamboling? It's mushkoth or something is the phonetics of the Hebrew. Sakak, saw cock. He saw cock. Okay, so I don't know how you get sakak out of MSHCHQTH, but sure. To laugh in pleasure or detraction, by implication to play. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so from day to day, gamboling before him in every season. So they were having a good time. They liked each other's company. Things were funny. Gamboling in the habitants of his earth, and my bliss was in the sons of humanity. So it sounds like this was good, good laughing. Like, he's laughing because the world that the Lord gave him made him incredibly happy. Now then, my sons, hearken to me. Happy are those who keep my ways. Hearken to admonition and be wise. Do not renounce it. Happy is the man who hearkens to me, being alert at my doors day by day, keeping watch at the jambs of my portals. For whoever finds me will find life and gain benevolence from Yahweh, and yet whoever misses me wrong his soul. All who hates me. This has nothing to do with staining your clothes, though. Where does staining your fucking clothes and being killed come into play here by citing that verse? I'm taking just a quick glean with my eyes. Here our house was unseen, descending chambers of death. All right, whatever. It's so that is such an unacceptable fucking answer. Like, you're learning this in real time. You're expected to keep this conviction in your heart above the common law where you live. Huh, yeah. Okay. The same teacher said again, a scholar, or wait, no, I already read all that, sorry. Yohanan said, who can be called a scholar trustworthy enough to be believed when claiming a lost article without identification, but simply by seeing the article lost and claiming it as his own? A scholar who is so particular that if he happens to put on his night robe wrong side out, he will take the trouble to take it off again and adjust it properly. I have a feeling the answer to that question is kind of like that, whether it's on unclaimed ground or not. Like that prior one about tying the knots. I mean, we're technically still in tying the knots. You know, it's just that that's how derivative everything gets in the Talmud, right? So you have to remember that. So I just find that very interesting, because I know that in our proper common law, if I'm walking down a sidewalk, there's a $50 bill lying on the ground. I look to my left, I look to my right. There ain't nobody of note. I'll just fucking pick it up. And I consider myself an incredibly honest man. So, like, you know, like, I won't even hold it in my hand. I'll walk around with it for a little bit. Right? And and if I see somebody who's looking, it's just like, hey man, you looking for something? Like, I'd play that game, right? You know, just to make sure I don't give it to the wrong guy. And I'm not gonna fucking wait there all day. You know, it's just like, it's basically I take an extra moment. So anyway, Yohanan said again, who is the scholar worthy of being made the president of a congregation? The one who, when asked concerning an ordinance bearing on any subject, knows exactly what to answer, even such ordinances as are contained in the tract Kala. Kala is the supplement to the Talmud, which is not generally read and treats of a bride. He said again, who is a scholar that is deserving of having his work performed by his fellow citizens? The one who neglects his own affairs to attend to religious affairs. This refers, however, only to one who has lost his subsistence on account of his congregational duties. Again, Yohanan said, who can be called a scholar? Talmud Kakam, or Shakam, one who can give the interpretation of any ordinance in whichever chapter or tract that may be shown him. What difference does that make? The difference is this. If a man is familiar only with the ordinances of a certain tract, he may only be competent to be the presiding officer of one community. But if he understands them all, he may be made the chief of the house of learning in a whole district. Ishmael said, One may arrange his clothes, etc. The rabbis taught it is written in Numbers 28:10. This is the burnt offering of the Sabbath. From this we learn that we may offer up the tallow left over from the Sabbath on the Day of Atonement. But I am becoming Ganungagap. But anyway, but one might say that the far left over on the Day of Atonement may be offered up on the Sabbath. Also, therefore, the passage says in Ibid, on every Sabbath, so says Ar Ishmael. But Ar Akiba says, this is the burnt offering of the Sabbath. On every Sabbath implies that the fat left over from the Sabbath may be sacrificed on a biblical feast day. But one might say that it may be done also on the Day of Atonement. Therefore, the passage says on every Sabbath. So you would just hang on to like fat, like leftover fat for the burning. Like I suppose that's fine, but like, you end up making all these bazillions of little things, perishable things, into preserved consumables over a very long period of time. It's just like I buy candles for my altar, and then like I light the candles for ritual every night, and then I blow them out when I'm done every night, and I save my wax, but I'm doing it every night. Right? So it dwindles itself down over time. Anyway, the point difference, Ar Ishmael and Ar Akiba, is as follows. Ar Ishmael contends that vow offerings and voluntary offerings may be brought on feast days, and therefore the term every Sabbath cannot refer to feast days, but does refer to the Day of Atonement, whereas Ar Akiba contends that such offerings must not be brought on feast day, and hence every Sabbath implies that the fat left over from the Sabbath may be offered up on a feast day. Ar Zera or Ar Abba. I wonder what Zera means in or Zera or whatever means in Hebrew, right? Because I'm Zerilath, and so there's a derivative, right? And I picked Zerilath because I was looking at the Etruscan stuff, and I was tapping into some of that for my proto-Italic, admiration, right? And there's going to be that relationship to the Phoenicians in that part of Italy. Sea People's Federation and the Phoenicians both had a lot to do with things going on and may in fact be sources for Romulus and Remus in the mythos. It is 10:35. Let's hold on a second. Hold on. Let's get to the end of the chapter. Said in the name of Arhuna, if the Day of Atonement fall on a Sabbath, herbs for cooking must not be selected on that day, said Armana. This we have learned in a Boretha as follows. Whence do we know that if the Day of Atonement fall on a Sabbath, herbs must not be selected? Because it is written in Exodus 16:23, a holy rest is unto the Lord tomorrow. Why is the word rest repeated? Shall we assume that no other labor must be performed? This is ordained in chapter 20:10. Thou shalt not do any work. It must therefore refer to such work as is not really labor, as selecting herbs. Like, why can't, like, not going, like not doing any work, just simply mean you've taken the day off? Why can't it just be, I'm on my day off, right? Like, all these guys, they work organized with each other, just like any other civilization. You do a kind of work, and you take the fruits of your labor and you bring them to market, and you go through the exchanges. You can operate with money and acquire wealth. You can use your imagination to bring about all sorts of services, right? This is, capitalism in the most basic sense before you get into like anything else, just like how you're personally doing your thing. And you take the day off, for God or whatever. But the point is that like you're it's not that you don't do any labor at all. Like I go I got my day off, and I got to go fix the sink, right? And so I set aside those 3 hours of the day, and it's something I got to do because I have to go out there and work all the other times, and I need a sink, right? I think that there's probably it probably turns into, if you're a money-making Jew, you could probably have a whole system set up, right, where you're not necessarily a money-making Jew like you're fucking Jeffrey Epstein, but I mean, you're a money-making Jew as in, like, you're an honest working fucking dude who happens to be Jew, who happens to have some honorings of the Sabbath and such, one of the more fucking rational fucking synagogues out there. And so you don't have too many things. You live poorer than you actually are because you don't want to be caught in a situation where you have to work on the Sabbath. So that way you can minimize the amount of work you would do on the Sabbath so you can enjoy your day off to honor God. Or to not enjoy your day off to honor God, because it seems like you're trying to suffer through a ritual that in your imagination is this great thing that you like and that you really want to be doing this. And that's what reading the Talmud, it's like, guys, we really want to be doing this? All right, we're really doing this. We're really living this way. Woo, this is being Jewish. What fun. Who do I gotta kill again for breaking the law? Anyway. Which occurs on the Sabbath. Negative. Okay. Selecting herbs. Passion must refer to Sabbath on which the Day of Atonement happens to fall, because in ordinary Sabbaths no additional prescription is necessary, but it being the Day of Atonement on which, were it not also Sabbath, such work would be permissible. On account of alleviating the suffering caused by fasting, we might assume that it would be allowed also on a Day of Atonement, which occurs on a Sabbath. Therefore, the passage refers to a Sabbath upon which the Day of Atonement happens to fall. Arhaya Bar Eba, however, in the name of Ar Yohanan, said selecting herbs on a Sabbath concurrent with the Day of Atonement is permissible, and the repetition of the word rest is on account of the prohibition of actual labor, and as for there being another ordinance to that effect, it is for the purpose of signifying that the transgressor of this commandment will be punished for the violation of both the positive and the negative commandment. Okay, I see what they're saying there. Oh, man. Exodus 16:23. I don't even think I want to look that up. Because I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And that might even be more important than what it actually says up here. Anyway. We have learned in a Boretha in support of Aryahanan, selecting the herbs on a day of atonement, concurrent with a Sabbath, is permissible. Nuts may be cracked and pomegranates cleaned after the afternoon prayer, for the purpose of alleviating the suffering of the fasting. In the house of Aryahuda, the cabbage was prepared, and in Rabba's house, pumpkins were cleaned. Later on, Rabbah noticed that this was being done even before the afternoon prayer, so he told them that a message was received from Aryahanan of Palestine that this was prohibited. So here's the footnotes. You can take a look at that at your leisure. Now, what's this? Chapter 16. I'm curious. How long is it? Is it a big, long chapter? Probably. Looks like it. Yeah, it's a pretty long chapter. How long have I been live for? Because I think, what is that, 2.5 hours? I think I've been live for like a hot minute. Hang on. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah, I'd say this is good. I'd say this is a great place to call it at this chapter heading. All right? So next time, maybe tomorrow, not sure, we'll do chapter 16, regulations concerning articles which may be saved from a conflagration on Sabbath. All right, Zerilath Eternal. I've been reading the Babylonian Talmud tonight. Can't wait to get to the end of this. 227 out of 346 of what is not even the whole Talmud. Because I think the whole Talmud is basically when you've got all these other texts that are all referenced throughout, like Ibid and all that stuff, right? And I don't know if they've got interlinears on all that stuff, and I don't know if I'm going to get the right value out of it unless I can get some level of what the interlinear is going to give me. And I'm tempted to ask AI to help in the future, but I would still have to proof the work that AI does before I used it. Anyway, that's going to be it. You guys have a kick-ass night, and I'll see you soon. And next week, I'm going to be working all week this same big, long-ass gig. So expect probably more early morning drive streams and maybe some other commuting drive streams, and probably not enough time and energy to do much during the week. All right. Have a good one.